Death at Rottingdean, Chapter 36. There are some frauds so well conducted that it would be stupidity not to be deceived by them. Charles Caleb Colton, Lacon, 1825. They didn't have long to wait. Off to the left, where the slabs of fallen chalk tumbled almost out to the tide, Charles saw a low, bobbing light, a lantern. As the light grew closer, he glimpsed two shadowy figures, a tall, cloaked figure walking behind a smaller one. The smaller was carrying the lantern. Charles let out an involuntary breath of relief. Tudwell grunted excitedly and swiveled his shoulders in pantomime of speech. "It's the boy," Kipling whispered gleefully. Charles tensed, waiting until the pair were almost directly beneath him. When he stood, raising his pistol, "Halt!" he commanded loudly. "Bewegen Sie sich nicht!" The cloaked man stopped in mid-stride, as if unbelieving. Then he put out his left hand, seized Patrick's shoulder, and turned in their direction, keeping the boy between himself and them. "Lord Sheridan," he inquired, "you are not going to make the effort to carry out this conversation in German, I hope? That would be too tedious, and silly as well. We can transact our business quite adequately in English." A figure of lightning lit the scene, and Charles saw that the man held a Mauser in his right hand. The barrel was pressed against the back of Patrick's head. "My God!" Kipling exclaimed incredulously. "Count Hauptmann, the Kaiser's cultural representative! What the devil?" "Herr Kipling, too," the Count said pleasantly. "So you have both come to see me off. I am sorry to have kept you waiting, gentlemen. I had to stop and fetch a little insurance, shall we say?" He laughed in ironic amusement. Kipling leaned over the wall. "Patrick, are you all right?" "All right, sir," Patrick replied steadily. "But he's planning to make off with that skiff, and—" "That's enough, boy," the Count snapped. "Sheridan, you can see that I am armed, but perhaps you cannot see that this gun is—" "I know about the gun," Charles says brusquely. "Ah, so you recognize Herr Mauser's clever invention. Do you also know the way I have put it to use?" Patrick squirmed, trying to pull free. The Count collared the boy more firmly and brought the gun to his cheek. "Stand still, my young friend," he said icily, "or I shall be forced to do something you would not like." Patrick stopped struggling and stood still. "Yes, we've seen how you used the Mauser," Charles said. "We discovered the ejected shell casing on the floor of the mill and x-rayed Captain Smith's body to locate the bullet. Given the opportunity to compare the grooves on the bullet with the rifling of that pistol of yours, we could likely prove that you used it to kill him." "Ah, this modern science," the Count said. "So up to date in its methods. X-ray studies of bullets. Soon there will be no escape for even the vilest of criminals." His tone grew hotter. "I take it then you have spoken to Mr. Tudwell since my conversation with him." "Mr. Tudwell has joined forces with us," Charles said. "In fact, he's here now, although he's rather tied up at the moment." The Count laughed dryly. "Then you know about the investors and the smuggling. What a pity that Mr. Tudwell could not be trusted to hold his tongue. He might have enjoyed a long, lucrative employment with us." Harry Tudwell made rude noises behind his gag. "What we know," Charles said in a deliberate tone, "is that there are no investors and that whatever smuggling is going on here is a fraudulent cover for another activity altogether." There was another moment's silence, then the Count said archly, "Very clever, Sheridan, and just what might that activity be?" "Captain Smith was not as careful an agent as you could have wished, Hauptmann. In his cottage we found map overlays which suggest that an amphibious operation is planned for this vicinity. We also discovered George Radford's knife, which the captain used to kill Radford after he threatened to interfere with his plan. And in the tunnels we found a supply of Mausers, explosive detonators, and telegraphy devices, equipment that could be used to expedite the infiltration of agents or saboteurs into this country. What we don't know, however, is whether you are acting in an official capacity on behalf of the Kaiser's government, and with his blessing, or whether this is a freelance project of your own devising." He paused. "Perhaps you would care to enlighten us to that detail. We are also curious as to know why you killed Captain Smith." "Captain Smith," Hauptmann replied scornfully. "He was killed because he was insubordinate, of course. He was ordered to leave the handling of George Radford to his superiors. Not only did he disobey that order, but after he had killed the man, he botched the disposal of the body. Given certain remarks that Radford was making, it was virtually certain that complaints would be heard by those in authority and that Smith would be accused. His rash act jeopardized the entire operation. Hence, I took it upon myself to discipline him." There was a loud peal of thunder. "Now, if you will excuse me, I shall fetch my travelling case and be on my way. My ship is expecting me." "Your case?" Charles asked. He lifted it up onto the wall. "I believe, sir, that we have anticipated you. We have it here." "Ah!" The Count was silent for the space of several breaths. Then, "Have you opened it?" Not yet, Charles said. Whatever is in this is undisturbed. You may have it in return for the boy. Throw in an hour's head start and then you have a bargain, the Count replied. Don't trust him, Sheridan, Kipling whispered urgently. On my word as a gentleman, the Count said, and I have yours, I assume. Of course, Charles said. He picked up the case. Kipling pulled at his arm. We can't give it to him, Charles. This case may be full of valuable strategic information. We still don't know whether the man is working for the Kaiser or for himself, and we know nothing about the extent of his espionage activity. If he gets back to Germany with those documents, they could be used to... Charles shook his head. The game is up, Rod. We understand enough about his operation to scuttle it entirely, and he knows it. Whatever is in that case is probably more of an embarrassment to the Kaiser and to Hauptmann than a threat to the Queen's realm. And it certainly isn't worth a gun battle that would cost Patrick's life and quite possibly ours. My compliments, my lord, the Count said in an admiring tone. You have stated my own conclusions quite competently. In any event, I have grown very fond of this young man in the hours we have spent together. He's a bright chap, very courageous. It would be sad indeed for him to die at so tender an age. Then you should be glad to let him go, Charles said. I'm coming down with the case. Excellent. You will leave your gun on the wall, however. Charles hesitated. Come, Sheridan, the Count snapped. We are gentlemen, are we not? A bargain is a bargain. Keep your gun on the man, Charles said sotto voce to Kipling, and picked up the case. A moment later, he was on the beach. Very good, the Count said. Put it in the skiff. Charles shook his head. The boy first. Lord Sheridan, the Count said in a tone of rebuke. I gave my word as a gentleman. Charles walked to the skiff and put the case in the bow, and turned. Now the lad. When I am ready, the Count said. Step away from the boat. You gave your word as a gentleman, Charles said angrily. What makes you think I'm a gentleman? The Count's laugh grated harshly. A man is a fool who trusts the words of a spy. I've used for the boy. He's going with me. Pushing the gun into Patrick's neck and keeping the boy between himself and Kipling, he walked sideways toward the skiff. Charles clenched his hand angrily and helpless. If he leapt for the boy, Hauptmann would kill him, if he was certain of that. But Patrick was dead already, for he knew too much to be set free. The moment Hauptmann stepped into the boat, he would jump for it, throw the man off balance, give Patrick an instant to flee. He tensed, but before he could move, the entire beach was suddenly and eerily lit, as if by a lightning bolt of blue-white flare of enormous power. The Count cried something in German as he instinctively threw up his hand to shield his eyes. Charles, in a darting run, snatched the boy and dove for the cover of the nearest bathing machine. The impression of the flash lingered long after it went out. There was a silence, and then a clear, melodic voice spoke from the rockfall. A picture, they say, is worth 1,000 words. Kate! Charles exclaimed. What the devil? Lady Sheridan, the Count cried in a strangled voice. You have taken a photograph? On the headland above, Kipling unshuttered the lantern and held it up. Stunned, Charles saw Kate, dressed in trousers and a heavy sweater, her hair pinned up under his tweed golf cap, advancing onto the beach, a cricket bat in her hand, Lawrence with a box camera in one hand, and Charles' magnesium lamp in the other, was a step behind her. Surely you know something of Lear, Your Excellency, Kate said sweetly, and with as much self-assurance as if they were in a ballroom. Perhaps you remember Gloucester's lines from the second act. All ports I'll bar, the villain shall not escape. Besides his picture, I will send far and near, that all the kingdom may have due note of him. She paused and added regretfully, helpful to us, but not so to you, I fear, sir. A spy's photograph in the hands of his enemy rather spoils his game, I should think. The Count sputtered something indistinguishable in German. Charles stepped out from the bathing machine. I believe a bargain is concluded, Hauptmann. We have the boy, you have the case. Now take the skiff and go before the storm makes it impossible for you to reach the ship. There was a silence. Very well, the Count said at last. Perhaps we shall meet again in happier circumstances. He chuckled dryly. Although next time I should rather you left your wife at home. He turned his back on them, shoved the skiff into the waves, and leapt into it. He seized the oars and set them in locks, and with powerful strokes began to pull out into the angry sea.